All right, and we're live. AJ, so glad to have you on for this week's episode of Hard Money Monday. Origin story time for anybody who knows how I got into the game. You're looking at the reason right here. So always a pleasure to talk shop and get you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be on Hard Money Monday. I feel like it's long overdue. And
I
I'm not
know.
the first hard money lender that you've had on, right? Or am I?
No, I had to warm it up with some scrubs before getting you on. I wanted to make sure we had this down pat. But no. I think Austin Hughes came on early on, and other than that, I think that's it, man.
Yeah, I feel like the circle's relatively small in Tampa. Like you got me, you, Johnny, Frank, a couple other guys, Andrew. So it's always good to kind of talk shop.
Yeah, there's really only about, I don't know, there's less than 10 people in Tampa that, at least that I know of, that are like actually doing serious business locally.
Right. And then you got Kiavi that's doing more business than all of us, and we have never seen him down here.
Yeah, they're literally a ghost. They're
Yeah.
invisible. They don't exist. Yeah, you won't catch them at a networking event. And
Yeah.
speaking of, pretty good transition opportunity. Let's just start off. So I want to talk first red flags, like just stuff that you see that you come across that you're like, whoa, like this is sketchy, or this sounds like a huge overpromise. And then later on, we can talk about, okay, as two guys that are in the game, like what should borrowers, people who are fixing flipping, like what do they need to do to really get the best setup when it comes to hard money? So, talking red flags,
as far as
man.
red flags, there's so many directions you can take it. I can give you a few, and we can maybe go down one path and dive into it a little bit more. I think something that I see that's a problem just in the industry as a whole is too many deals are won at the issuance of a term sheet. So like I could be competing against someone, you have 3 or 4 guys issue terms, and the borrower just goes with the best one because they don't know any better. And I feel like I see so many deals that they don't actually play out that way. And so it's kind of like a race to the bottom with all these lenders to issue terms, and these are short-term closings, and then all of a sudden they switch up, a few days before, and then you're kind of left holding the bag. So that's a problem I see is deals getting won at issuance of term sheet. I think like there's got to be some more vetting from the borrower on the front end just to understand like, hey, what's your process to determine value? Is value already determined? Can this change based on credit? Like whatever. So that's a problem I see. We can get into pricing as well. I think, if you're paying more than like 12% interest and 3 points, you're probably getting ripped unless there's some crazy circumstances.
520 credit score.
Yeah, like 520 credit. Yeah, it's got to be crazy to be paying that. And the industry has grown so much to where you can go find, some pretty good pricing out there. So just like being cognizant of what you're getting charged is another thing. If you're paying more than 3 points, are you working with a broker and you don't know it? Like those are questions to ask. So I think you can go down like the pricing rabbit hole. You can go down the process of like, how the loan transpires, evaluations, all that stuff.
Yeah, let's hammer out 2 of these because I agree with you. And 2 of the most common red flags I see is number 1, term sheet different than settlement statement, right? What you're quoted different than what you get. And the second thing is the value, dude. Values are, which also has to do with access, potential funding time, etc. So let me know what you think about this. But if I'm a borrower, the question I'm asking when I get a term sheet is, okay, how certain are you that these are the exact terms I'm getting? And what happens if they change? Like, what happens if I go with you and then this isn't the reality? Like, what's the consequence for you as the lender? Like, I don't really get asked that much. People are just like, I have this term sheet. Look at this. Can you do better than this? I'm like, I'll do better than what they actually do.
Yeah. Asking a lender what the consequence for them is, I don't know what answer you're going to get. The lender holds the funds. So for us to say like, well, the good thing is, and this is another red flag, is like, at least for us with Easy Street Capital, we don't require an initial deposit. So that could be another red flag, is if a lender is charging an initial deposit. We do it on our long-term loans because, you know, you could get into a 3-4 week process and then the borrower shops you and you bail. So there's got to be some recourse to save us. On the hard money side, these loans are so fast and they move so quick. Like, there's no need for an initial deposit. So if you're getting asked for that, that could be a red flag.
Why would somebody ask for it?
Sorry, go ahead.
Why would somebody ask for an initial deposit on a bridge loan?
Well, I mean, companies do it. Fund That Flip, for example, did it. It's probably the same mindset. Just, you know, if a borrower bails on them, there's processing fees incurred that they want to recoup. Some that require an appraisal. You know, it could be going towards an appraisal, but in my opinion, you really don't need one for a hard money loan. They move so quick,
dude. Yeah, I actually lost a really nice loan a month or two ago, and the guy's rationale was, well, I already paid $350 for an appraisal, and like they didn't actually need an appraisal. It was just, you know, underwriter's opinion or a broker price opinion. But he was like, it's just stupid, man. Like putting up $350 now compared to like potentially tens of thousands of dollars in difference in how the loan is set up.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. We see it on the DSCR side because we require a deposit. And so, you know, if you have, you know, $1,000, $1,500 into a deal, and then you go get quoted and maybe it's 25 basis points less, for example, it's like, is it really worth making that switch if I've already got skin in the game on this loan? So you're going to be kind of incentivized to close it out. But back to kind of like, how can you know if terms hold true? For us on the evaluation side, we do it up front. So the day an application gets submitted, we pull our comps. I'll even provide the borrower with the comps that we pull, our opinion of value, and they know what our opinion is on day one, which is nice. And then I always try to be upfront with like, hey, this is contingent on what you stated. So like, if you tell me your credit is 720, like usually 660 is our mark, where if you're below that, we gotta change some things. So I'll try to say like, hey, this is contingent on 660. This is contingent on your experience. You know, if you get a GC that says they're experienced, but they've never held principal ownership in a deal, like we need to address that. So just like I always try to issue terms contingent on what's being stated.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, man. It's also like when you know somebody's got some weird stuff going on, like I've got a big loan right now where the guy checks every box, but 2 recent credit card lates brought his score down a little bit. It's like, hey man, look, what I'm not going to do is overpromise you. If you want to see potentially the best thing that I could get for you, this is what the terms look like. However, here's what I think we can get almost for sure, and then we'll try to work up from there. Whereas he shops me with a broker who's charging, by the way, I want to ask about this, backside points. But just like, I can tell they haven't looked at the deal at all. They're just like, all right, yeah, we'll do like 90% leverage and a little bit lower interest rate. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like a perfect example, last week I was looking at a property. It's like a single family home with a mother-in-law in the back, and the mother-in-law had fire damage, which like of the hundreds, thousands of loans I've done, I think I've done 1 or 2 fire damaged homes. Like there's a lot of hair on these deals. And the scope of work was like $60,000. And I just said up front, like, hey, I can issue you terms based on what your personal qualifications, like you are a 90% borrower, but I can tell you right now, if we get into this deal, we're essentially going to decline your scope of work. Like this needs more than 60K. So like another lender could issue terms that look favorable, knowing that they're going to switch them up last minute, which does no one any good.
Yeah, 100%. That's the other thing, because I'm sure you guys have what's your normal threshold for like loan to value that you'll go up to?
Well, so like ARV, LT ARV.
Yeah.
So 70%.
Okay, we're the same.
I mean, there's some that's fluid. If we need to, you know, take it 71, 72 to make a deal work, we can, but generally 70%.
Yeah, that's what I always get cautious too when people send me a budget and scope that's like, you are right at the threshold. I usually put on the term sheet like, hey, I'm going to put the value for what we need to be at to get you this like maximum leverage. But also, here's all my comps and what I would be willing to fight for. Like, I'll tell people up front, like, hey, I don't like your deal. If you want to run it, let's go. But I'm not going to fight for your value, especially Jacksonville deals. I'm like, screw that, bro.
Jacksonville, no doubt.
That's just a red flag. Any deal in Jacksonville, don't do it. That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, you get those, triplex, quadplexes that are like 90K and you're sitting at, 30K per door. And those are just a mess.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so that's just on the note of term sheets. And then what else do we want to talk about? Value. Red flags for value, man. What should somebody be on the lookout for when their lender shoots them some terms and is like, yeah, we just got to get value on it and we're all set?
Well, so I will say, like, if you get terms quick and you ask the lender what their value is and they say exactly what your value is, I would maybe dig into that a little bit more and just say, hey, like, are you just agreeing with me or did you actually pull your comps and could you provide those comps that support what I'm giving you? Because if someone's just going to agree with your value, that doesn't do any good if they're going to get, a third party evaluation later on down the road. So that's something I would probably consider. I think, specific to Tampa St. Pete right now, it's hard to comp deals post hurricane. What I'm saying all the time is people sending a deal and then their comps are pre-hurricane, which, maybe, but it's hard to get aggressive from the lender side and really take that at face value and be okay with it, because we don't know like what the market's going to do. So if you're going to be comping post hurricane, you have to be a little bit conservative. So that's something I'm
big
seeing
time
right now.
conservative. In my opinion, man, if you're talking about anything flooded, knock at least 10% of ARV off, at least. And it's a little bit of a trap because I don't really like funding any of those deals right now unless I know there's a good exit as a burr, because probably they'll appraise better than they actually sell for is my thought process. But yeah, man, flood zone stuff, you really got to slash ARV down at least 10% from your comps. And then stuff that's like non-flood zone, not even close, I'm like, dude, there might even be a premium on those, honestly.
For sure.
I did, circling back on what you said earlier, like huge red flag, in my opinion, is when you ask for terms and you get them in like 2 minutes. That is just like, there's something to be said for a lender who's quick on top of it, but not comping, huge red flag. Like most of the deals that I see fall apart are because hard money lenders just didn't comp it and the value is not there. And when you're an asset-based lender, the only thing you really care about, honestly, is that end value. I talked to a lot of lenders and I was shocked. Like I don't usually send out any terms unless I've like thoroughly comped it. And unless it's someone who I know is really solid and they know their stuff. But it's like at least 50% of lenders that are like, no, I don't usually comp it. I'm too busy. I'm like,
yeah,
bro,
it's a good point. And it's something that like we battle with internally as well, because you want to be giving terms true to like what our opinion is. But at the same time, like turning a term sheet quick could be the difference in winning a deal. So there's kind of like a balance between getting it out quickly while also doing enough vetting of it on the front end. Because like sometimes just putting terms in front of a borrower and then seeing it earlier. I mean, you know how all these deals are always closings, like you got to play hero ball, you got to save it. And so putting a term sheet out there quickly is a competitive advantage if you can like follow up with what you're offering. So that's more that's another thing from the borrower side that's important. Like, hey, thanks for giving me this term sheet in 2 minutes. What did you guys see? Like, how did you come to this? Or did you just quote me based off of like what I qualify for?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a great point.
Yeah. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you guys are the same way we are. At least we'll do this for like our 700 plus credit experience borrowers, but like we'll just go fully underwriter internal value. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if it's a deal like in a state I don't know, I'm not usually going to like spend time for value. If it's a deal in Tampa, St. Pete, and I feel good about the deal, like I will fight to the death to get the value that I believe in. And I don't like, we don't care about outsider opinion. And I think you guys are the same with most of your deals as well, where it's really just like, what do we care about from our team and not really dependent on an agent who's never done a deal, aka a BPO, right?
Yeah, for the most part, we underwrite all of our own deals. We're coming in with our own opinion of value. The way that we have our product structured is 80 to 85% leverage, no appraisal required, no BPO, no third party, nothing like that. We just pull our comps internally and we say, yep, value checks out. We're good to go at 80 or 85. Once we kick into the 90% bucket for leverage, that's where we need to go get a third party evaluation. And that's strictly just so we can sell the note on the back end.
Right.
I don't know anyone doing 90% leverage that isn't getting a third party evaluation and can sell the note, or you're a balance sheet lender like yourself.
Yeah, I don't know about the selling the note part.
Yeah, we'll do post closing stuff too. Like same thing. If it's a good borrower, if it's a cut and dry deal and we're like, okay, value is going to be there for sure, like we know it, we'll just get a post closing appraisal.
Yeah.
But it's more so, that's more so just to be able to like market the loan and sell it on the back end. But you know, if you're balance sheeting, that wouldn't apply.
But yeah, like your company's the same as mine. Like we don't actually care about those opinions. A lot of times it's just literally checking a box. And then like we literally, it was cool, man. We had a report of like our underwriter opinion of value tracked against what properties actually sold for or what they appraised at on the refinance. And it was literally like exactly spot on. Like it was crazy how close it was. And then we're able to say like, hey, look, this is why we don't really think that we need to get other people's opinion, because look at historically over the last 10 years, we're like pretty much really, really close.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, we like our opinions better than someone else. Like,
yeah, of course,
we're more comfortable with our evaluation than someone else. So we're not thrilled about appraisals. We'd rather comp out all of our deals if we can.
Yeah. Dude, how often do you see other lenders doing like the no points up front, but points on the backside, like payoff points?
I don't see it that often, not with anyone that I compete with directly. Do you know anyone in particular that does it, or?
I was told, I think, who is it? Is it not RCN, but there's one company out there where they have a broker only model. So like they don't have any employees for salespeople. It's just only brokers that sell their products. But apparently they'll do like, you can go 2 points up front or 3 points in the back end. And like, I mean, dude, basically it's leverage hacking, right? Yeah. But it's kind of a dope, like if you're the lender, dude, and someone, I mean, quite frankly, is dumb enough to do that, I'm like, oh, 50% bump in points. Like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a red flag to me. I'm like, that doesn't like seem right.
Yeah. I mean, your cost of capital is your cost of capital, whether you defer it or not. So I don't know how I feel about it. It could be beneficial, but I don't run into it that much. I see a lot of people that promote like, if someone's charging 12%, they'll be like, yeah, we'll charge you 1% a month. And it's like the same exact thing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I see extension fees kind of work differently for a lot of people. I'll see like half a point for an extra month extension. I'll see 1 point for a 3-month extension. So I'll see some different stuff on the back end with extensions, which, like, truth be told, that's where lenders make their money, is on extension fees. Especially if you're selling notes like we are, the spread on the rate is so small that like we make a lot of money on the extension fees and the front points.
Yeah, that's, we don't run into that a lot because we do everything 12 month. So like, for instance, I'm still 3 months away from even having those conversations with anybody, right? But I think that's actually a really good point, because usually if somebody's doing a 6-month term, it'll usually be cheaper than a 9-month or 12-month term, right? But in reality, I mean, probably only 50% of flips, people are in and out in 6 months, especially right now in Tampa Bay. Like 40 days is average days on market. That's like 2 months just in the whole listing time frame, best case scenario average. So then you're talking about 120 days top to finish reno. Like, you don't do that unless you know what's up and you got a system.
I I think on
So,
our flip, we just barely beat the 6-month mark,
oh yeah.
which I mean I thought was pretty impressive. So usually what I try to do is if it's a cosmetic like 40K or less flip, from again like there's the lender side and there's the borrower side. As far as like we have to make money, the borrower has to make money.
Yep.
If we're 40K or less, we want to issue 6-month terms. Like we make money recycling capital, so we don't want to do everything at 12. And like you said, I mean, it sits on the market. Usually what I offer my clients is you can do a 6-month term. This is a very cosmetic reno. You should get in and out in time. If you want, you can buy a longer term length. Usually I do like a quarter point for an extra 3 months. Or if you're listed on the market or if you're renovating, it's 1 point for 3 months. And there's a significant like improvement in pricing to buy it on the front end. And so many people are hesitant to do that because they think they're going to get out. And then, a hurricane comes through and then they have to restart.
Optimism blinders, my friends.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. Like fix and flippers wear those things. Like they're just literally, it's not sunglasses. They're literally blind wearing these optimism blinders. Like it's really crazy how people are so unwilling to spend a little bit more to dramatically reduce risk. And that's kind of one of the things that I've changed my mind frame on a lot. The more people I've seen come in and do deals, I'm like, man, it's a lot more about getting rid of your downside than like crazy upside. At least that's my opinion. If you're looking for longevity and sustainability.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, if you get caught with your term length coming due and you're paying extension after extension after extension, you're going to lose money very quickly. So like buying the longer term on the front end, even if it's a little bit more, I think you're just kind of mitigating risk there. So I agree with you 100%.
Dude, you want to know what's hilarious? So one of your borrowers is coming to me for a bridge to bridge. They paid extensions like 2 times, and now they have to refinance.
So let's talk bridge to bridge. How do you feel about bridge to bridge?
I've never done one, and the only thing I know about it is that you told me that it's sketch, and I'm like, dude, that actually is sketch. Like going bridge loan to bridge loan is something is not like the business plan was not executed if somebody's doing that.
Yeah, I mean, bridge to bridge, the dynamics, like something went wrong. So
Yes.
like if you're paying off a hard money lender with more hard money, they've already proven that they didn't execute on the first shot.
Yeah.
Whether it's their fault or not, if it's permits, if it's a situation like this hurricane, then yeah, the story tracks and maybe you need to go bridge to bridge. But like 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work and you have missed payments. So that's another thing too, is if you have to get a verification of mortgage from the lender and there's a 30-day late, like you're dead in the water, which is often the case. So we recently rolled out bridge to bridge and it is not favorable. It's appraisal required, no cash out proceeds. You cannot have any mortgage lates. You got to have a clean verification of mortgage. The pricing isn't worse. It's the same pricing. So it's not unfavorable in that regard. It's just, you're going to have to jump through hoops to get a second hard money loan on top of the one you've already got. Not on top, but to pay off the one you've already got.
Yeah, exactly. To replace it. I mean, it's hot potato with a mortgage at that point. It's like, who wants a short-term debt that's probably not going to perform?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, sometimes the story makes sense. I'm doing one or looking at doing one from Fund That Flip, and I think I don't know what's going on with them, if they're restructuring their company or going out altogether. I don't know. But like my borrower literally cannot get an extension because the company holding the note is going under. So like he has to bring his debt somewhere else, and he's a good borrower. And so there's deals to be had from bridge to bridge. Like CV3, they do $80 million plus a month on bridge to bridge. Like that's their niche.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a wild niche to have, bro.
And I don't know what their foreclosure, rates look like, but they found the niche and they dominate it.
Actually, you bring up a really good point, because one thing that I've realized is like there's 2 types of hard money lending companies. There's a lending company that really cares about their reputation in the note buyer market. Like you have to put together good loans, because if you don't, over time your pricing gets worse. you get more strings attached, and then you get less competitive. And it's like, it's really, really bad. Right. And both Rain City Capital and Easy Street are in that bucket. Like, we really care about default rate. We really care about borrowers. And like, yeah, we're an asset-based lender, but honestly, our reputation for potential note buyers, or even now with us, we have a bond on market. It's like, yo, we want that bond to perform really well. But then there's other lenders, and there's nothing necessarily against them. It's just a totally different side of the coin. They don't sell any notes. So while I'm sure they don't relish the idea of foreclosures, it's like, yo, if you have a pulse and the deal is right and we'll make money on it regardless, why not loan on it?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I don't know if it's necessarily a red flag. I mean, like, for instance, DKC, good lending company and everything, but they're doing like individual loans. They'll fund it. They bring in an investor looks at it and decides that they fund it. Ryan McGinnis has a similar company here locally, and they both do like very, very well. They have their place in the market. It's just completely different. But I think it's important to note, if you're a borrower, like, probably a lot less of their borrowers perform, and it's going to be more expensive because they're kind of capturing that risk into how they lend, and usually lower leverage. So it's just like, you got to know who you're dealing with. Are you dealing with a local shop who doesn't sell off notes, doesn't necessarily need to care about their like note performance, versus like a more national company where it's all about like long-term pricing? The avenue to better pricing is really good track record.
Yeah, sure. I know, I mean, Rain City and Easy Street, we're not a loan to own shop by any means. We want our notes to perform. And so usually when I tell people, hey, we can do this deal, it's like, you should have peace of mind doing this deal, because if we're approving it, that means we feel good about it. If you're working with, a smaller shop, like you were mentioning, doing like the co-lending model, they're pulling different, sources of capital to do one individual deal. They might be charging more, for the risk that they're taking on, and be, fully aware that they have to take over the property, and, they might still be able to make money. But that's a scary like business in my mind. If you and I had, $5 to $10 million to lend around, and we have 1 to 2 deals go south, like, you're in a bad spot.
I mean, unless your leverage is 50%, bro, then you're in a great spot. Yeah, man, 100%. I kind of my go-to line, and this is something that I pulled out recently. When I'm talking to borrowers and I'm telling them about like, hey, I'm like, I won't send you terms if it's not a good deal. Really, the heart of it is that I look at every single borrower as a potential golden goose. Like, hey, if I'm really picky about telling you a deal that I like and I actually believe in it and I think it's a great deal for you and you're ready for it, like, I'm going to say no to everything else until I see that. Why? Well, that's going to be a lot more work for me in the short term. And honestly, like, I don't really make that much money from doing one loan with you. But the difference is, if I make sure you get into a deal that you absolutely crush, that one deal turns into 2 deals. And then those 2 deals, I'm going to make sure they're good. And that turns into 4 deals. And by the way, since I was there taking the time up front, later on, you're still going to be wanting to work with me because I like was there every step of the way. And I have a borrower like that now, who literally had never had no assets, no like credit wasn't great, had never done a deal in real estate. And he trusted me. Like, we looked at like 12 different properties together before I was finally like, this is the one, you can buy this one. Like, you'll do well on this. And I actually had to fight for value on it too. And now we're funding our 3rd one together this week. He's made money on both of his flips, and this one's going to be a really good deal. Got him in with, he's done 2 of the 3 deals with wholesalers I personally know. Like, boom, that is my business model right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's what keeps you in the game too, is being successful on the first flip. Because if you have a bad experience on the first one, that could just totally kind of derail you.
Yeah, bro, you'll be like us.
Exactly. But yeah, now I'm taking a break for a year before I get into the next one. You've got another one though. So.
Yeah. Well, what's funny, man, is like, I learned a lot from our flip. For one, I was like, wow, I'm probably not the world's best project manager, but regardless, that's a huge distraction. It's so much time and energy. And I was also like, so we put our own money into it. I was playing project manager, and I was also spending time looking at deals from like random people. And I had this realization actually from like doing these podcasts with other people. It's like, man, okay, well, I have a bunch of contacts that would definitely give me money to do a deal just because I've like got them into good deals that I was aware of. So I don't really have to put up money for one if I find something good. I regularly get first look at a lot of deals from local wholesalers. And from doing deals, I have relationships with project managers now who'd run the whole thing. So like my only limitation now from not doing another one would just be like fear or ignorance because I have all of the pieces in place. So that kind of like I realized that. And then literally 2 weeks later, through Instagram, I got a Calendly scheduled. And a guy who's newer, I think he was actually tuned in earlier, Edgar. I don't know if he's still watching, but newer, has done some flips himself, had 2 under contract or about to go under contract. He's like, hey, I want funding on these. Not sure I can do both. Comped out the deal, loved the numbers on it. In Seminole, not even close to a flood zone. Big lot, 1970s house, passed 2 4 points already, has a pool with no damage, like checked every single box possible for like why I like potential risk. And I was like, there's no reason I shouldn't do this. And so that's kind of like my philosophy now is if a really good one falls into my lap, I have all the pieces, but I'm not going to take the time to search for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, now that you're in the hard money space, something I've thought of is how many deals do we have die that is not due to anything wrong with the property or the deal, but because like a borrower gets cold feet or they find another deal and they can't take this one on. And I don't know if it's conflict of interest or not, but there's so many deals at our disposal that we could take on from deals falling out. And we know what the contract price is direct to the seller or what the seller has. And like you could go scoop up deals that way if you wanted to. And I've kind of like realized that, but I don't know.
You gotta be careful with your reputation too.
For sure.
Like,
for sure.
I don't assign stuff. Nothing that's involved in any deal that I'm associated with, because I do not want that to be a reputation piece for me. But yeah, man,
or
like
even if it's just putting one of your other investors who's pre-approved and like kind of on the sidelines and just saying like, hey, this deal fell out.
Yes.
Let me go place that other buyer with this deal.
Yeah, that I will do. I actually was texting someone about that today. They lost out on a deal because they didn't put in EMD soon enough, and another deal popped up in the same area. And I was like, the wholesaler hasn't even put this out yet. But one of the huge benefits to what we do is like relative to everyone else in this industry, second only to title companies, we probably see the most amount of off-market transactions. Like we're going to be involved in more deals than a wholesaler, agent, or end buyer. So we just see like a lot of deals. I mean, who's going to see more deals than us? A title company. But I don't know who else would like basically be involved in more transactions.
We might see, I'd be curious to know who sees more between us and a title company, because think about how many deals we submit or look at that actually go to the closing table. So like if you close 15 to 20 deals a month, I don't know what, like an Albatross would do per month. But if we're doing 20 loans a month, we're probably looking at 80 deals, 60 to 80 deals. So maybe like 1 in every 4 pans out. So I'd be curious, title or lender, who sees more transactions.
Yeah, regardless, tons of ancillary benefits from literally just being involved in a lot of transactions. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, hey, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on for this week. I guess to finish it up, if you had one piece of advice for maybe somebody who's listening in, hasn't used hard money before or has had bad experiences, what would be just high level one takeaway or one tip or one thing for them to consider?
I would say specific to the financing side, I think there's huge value in meeting your lender in person or at a local meetup, and knowing who you're working with. I think a very bad approach is to, send a cold email to 5 lenders and go with best term sheet. So I would definitely advise against that. I am a proponent being a direct lender, working with a direct lender. I think brokers have their place on certain deals, but understanding what kind of financing you're getting into, knowing who you're working with, would probably be my biggest piece of advice. And just like to bring it back to evaluations, understanding how they're getting to their evaluations, and just knowing that your term sheets are solidified before you go too far.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of, great opportunity to mention the fact that you've got to meet up tomorrow, right?
That's right. Tomorrow, co-hosting with David, Bernie, and Francis, BTO Homebuyers. It's a great event, so anyone is welcome. I gotta figure out the time and the place. I should know that, but it'll be a great event.
It's like North Taliaferro or something.
Yeah. I don't know the name of the venue, but that's the address. It's 6:30 to 8:30, I believe.
The Real Something Collab, Real Estate Collab, maybe something like that. Yeah. Anyways, man, pleasure having you on. I know you got some loans to sling. I got some loans to sling. So I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And thanks again for joining.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.